Hey, I'm Cerise, and this is Storytime. Thank you so much for joining me. Oh, guys, this story time is interesting. I don't know. I'm really interested in hearing what you would do. Let me pour this coffee and let's chit chat about this story. I have to tell you, I'm interested in what your comments are going to be and what you would do if you were in this story. All right. So let's do the backdrop on the characters. There is Wayne and there's Wanda. So Wanda and Wayne met through very difficult circumstances. See, Wanda had a sister named Winona, and Winona was she was running the family company. You see, their father died a very long time ago. And Wanda she was more of her dad's princess. And she was the princess. So when her dad died, she took it really hard. And Winona, she was the older sister that took over the family business. She told her sister, Wanda, she said, listen, just go travel the world, find yourself, do what you have to do, and I'll run the family business. So that's exactly what Wanda did. But then what happened was this: her sister died. How did Winona die? Well, she was one night, she was supposed to be out of town, and Wayne, he was the builder, the construction worker, everything in her business. And he was very good at what he did. He was the best builder ever. And the only thing was, she wasn't paying him all the time when he was supposed to be paid. And another thing, he was addicted to substances. So one weekend, when he was supposed to get his pay, she didn't give it to him, and he was desperate. So he went to the office and he went to break into the safe. When he broke into the safe, he didn't find any money at all. There was no money, there was nothing. So what did he do? He was on his way out the door. But at the same time, Winona was walking in the door. And he looked at her and she said, Wayne, what are you doing here? And he was like, well, Winona, you owe me money. And she was like, what? And he tried to get past her, but she wouldn't let him get past. And she reached into her purse and she took out a tiny little gun. And when she went to shoot it, it backfired. And when it backfired, it went into her chest. She fell to the floor and he took off. He didn't take anything at all. He just left. Now, once he left, he felt so bad and he went to the police station and he told the police. He told the police the truth. The police showed up. By the time they got to her, she was dead. And there was nothing that could be done. They arrested him and he went to court. He admitted guilt. Now, when they first went to court, Wanda showed up. Before this, Wanda never ever met Wayne, didn't even know him at all. And so she just knew him as somebody who was the cause of her sister's death. That's how she felt it was all about. And she vowed to get him back one day because he was only sentenced to 18 months in jail. And this was a horrible thing to her because her sister's life was lost and she felt that Wayne should have gotten a lot longer. Now, Wayne's fingerprints were not on the gun and his fingerprints were only on the safe, and the safe was open, everything, and it showed that there was nothing taken out. There was no money. And the records were just so horribly kept that nothing could be proven. And also, not only that, there was a video camera that Wayne didn't even know about. Now, Wayne was not going to if he did find money, he wasn't going to rob and take what wasn't his. He was just going to take what was his weekly salary. But at the end of the day, he wanted his money, he wanted his high, and he didn't get anything. He left, he did not hurt her. And so now Wanda was very sour about it. And Wanda ended up having to run the business. Now, while Wayne was in jail, he turned his life around. He started to go to courses and he started to take some betterment courses on AA and NA, and he started to feel really better about himself. Now, in this course, they taught him about forgiving himself. And also, as part of the 12 steps that he learned, he had to apologize to people that he hurt. Now, of course, that would have been Wanda. So when he got out of jail, that's the first thing he did. He went and he looked on Facebook. He looked up Wanda. He knew her last name, her first name. And when he found her, he saw that she was still running the construction company through the advertisements on Facebook. And he knew about the Facebook page for the construction company. So he saw that it was still in the same place. And it was only 18 months later, anyway, a year and a half. So, he went back to the place of business. Now, this is the thing. When Wanda saw him in court, he looked dirty, disheveled. He looked like a person that was addicted to a heavy substance. When he showed up at her place, he was now shaved, his hair was short, and he was now a Christian, and he turned his life over, and he looked like he did. She looked at him as soon as he walked in the office, and she gave him a look. And he felt right away like, oh my gosh, this is not going to be easy. She remembers me. But she didn't. She said to him, how can I help you? Please don't tell me that you are a homeowner. I know already my employees got drunk on the job, and please, I'm trying to work on it. And he's like, no, I'm not a homeowner. She's like, oh gosh, please don't tell me you're from any of the banks. She's like, listen, my sister didn't even know how to keep a record. It's like, please. And he's like, no, I'm not from any of the banks. She's like, oh, thank God. She's like, who are you? And he's like, well, I used to work for your sister. And she's like, oh, great. She owes you money. And he's like, well, yeah, but her death. And she's like, oh, don't talk to me about that, please. Just listen. Are you looking for a job? And he's like, well, kinda. She's like, well, yes or no? And because he was looking for a job, he had just gotten out of jail. He said, well, yes. She said, okay, listen, I will hire you on. I'm not my sister, but I'm definitely looking for someone that I can trust, and you look like a trustworthy man. If I hire you on, can you please just help me out? And she's like, what do you do? And he's like, I'm a builder. She's like, are you good at what you do? And he's like, I am one of the best. And she's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. She put her face into her hands and she just started to weep. And he was like, listen, I'll help you. And at this point, he thought to himself, well, it's a way that he can help out the family after what he did by trying to rob them and Wanda losing her sister. He thought this is a good way that he can pay back. And he said to her, I will help. So he helped and he helped. And for 3 months, he worked morning, noon, and night like a dog. And he did it only so he could give back. During these 3 months, he never had the chance to tell Wanda the truth. Anytime he tried to bring up the sister's name, Wanda would say, no, don't talk to me about her. I'm still angry at her. Look at like the paperwork. People need to be paid. She didn't pay anyone. She just left such a mess here. I'm just so angry at her. And he couldn't tell her. And then they started to grow closer because at the end of the day, when he would be on his way home, he'd go back to the shop to check on her because he was so worried about her. And at the same time, Wanda was going through a divorce. She found out a month and a half in after Wayne started to work there that her husband was cheating. And Wayne told her, listen, Wanda, you're a beautiful woman. You are so gorgeous. You don't deserve a schmuck like that. This is a blessing in disguise. And he would talk to her all the time. And so for a month and a half, the two of them did grow very close. And it was the third month of them knowing each other that closely. And she, one night, invited him over for drinks to her place. And he was like, well, I don't drink because he had to quit. He said, but I would definitely come on over for dinner and I can pick up something and bring it over to your place. And she said, no, no, no. You know what? Come on over. I'll cook. And so that's what she did. And when he got there, they sat down and they had a bite to eat together. It was so great. They started a relationship pretty much that night. They kissed, they were romantic with each other, and for an entire year, it was amazing. Now, you may be saying during that year he didn't have a chance to tell her about the sister and the situation. Yes, he did. And he tried a few times. And he would say, listen, I really need to tell you something about your sister. Like, I really want to talk to you about the situation, her death. And Wanda was like, listen, my sister's death is a sore spot for me because I want to love her and I want to miss her. But at the same time, what she did to my dad's business makes me so angry. I can't talk about her. And so he didn't talk about it. But then, after a year of their relationship, he wanted to marry her. He wanted to be with her for the rest of his life. And he felt it was the right thing to do as a Christian man. So he asked her to marry him. And she said, yes. And he said, but listen, before we get married, I have to tell you what happened with your sister and me. I have to tell you before we go to the altar. And she said, Wayne, I can't listen to it. She's like, what? You made love to my sister? You guys had some type of an undercover relationship? What was it? She cheated on her husband with you? What? I don't want to hear it. I told you, I don't want to speak about my sister. It's too much of a painful situation. Why are you doing this to our relationship? And he's like, I don't mean to do anything. It's just, I need to tell you this. I can't marry you unless you know. She said, no, no. She said, I can't. I don't want to hear it. It's not even important. My sister's dead. She's gone. I just want us to have a relationship like neither one of us even knew her. She's gone. Let's just pretend like she's never existed, please. And he's like, okay, all right. He's like, but I just don't want you to find out from someone else one day. And she's like, I don't care what anyone else tells me about my sister and you. It's not even important. And he was like, okay, well, all right. So the two of them got married. Now, Wanda, she never ever had any children, and neither did Wayne. Both of them were a little bit older. Wayne was in his late 40s by this point, and Wanda was in her late 40s as well. So children was not really part of the plan for them. Not that 40s is too late to have children, because it's not. But for them, they felt like it was. They just wanted to enjoy each other and live with each other for the rest of their lives. They traveled, they enjoyed life, and the business was booming. They were out of debt and they were getting so many more calls from everyone. Wayne, he could build a house all on his own with just two employees. It was nothing for him to build a home. It was so magical, their relationship. Wanda never felt the type of love that she felt with Wayne. So now, one day, they were on vacation, but they decided to do a staycation. in their own home. They decided that they were going to close down the business for a week and they were going to just stay at home and get some work done around their own home. Fix a few things up and everything like that. Wayne worked so hard all the time that he didn't really get a chance to fix up their own home. And so that's what he wanted to do. And that's what he was doing. One day they went out together to the Home Depot, it's called in Canada. And they went to the Home Depot and they were there. And a woman went up to Wayne and she said, "Wayne, is that you?" And he's like, "Well, yeah." And she's like, "No way. Wayne? Wayne Schneider, how are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm doing really good. This is my wife, Wanda." And the woman looked at Wanda and she's like, "No way. Wow." And Wanda's like, "What?" And she looks at Wayne and Wayne's like, "What?" The woman's like, "Didn't you kill her sister?" Or like, and he was like, "What?" She said, "Aren't you the one that is responsible for her sister's death or something like that?" And Wayne was like, "No." And Wanda looked at Wayne. Wanda was like, "What? What did you just say?" To the woman. And the woman's like, "Oh, I don't know." She's like, "Maybe I'm wrong." And she's like, "Aren't you Winona's sister?" And she was like, "Yes, Winona is my sister." The woman's like, "Well, Wayne, aren't you?" Wayne's like, "Listen." And he took Wanda's arm and he said, "Wanda, come on, let's go." And the woman's like, "Wayne, I'm sorry. I thought she knew. I was just going to commend the two of you that, you can make forgiveness. You can make amends." Like, she's like, "Well, you look good anyway. I don't know what you're doing, but keep up the good work." And she's yelling at them as they're leaving the store. And immediately Wanda looked at Wayne and she recognized his eyes. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, you are him." Now, he did have very different eyes, piercing eyes, and they were green, so green that they were very unique. And he also was someone he had like very nice caramel color skin. And so she looked at him at this point and she said, "You are the same Wayne. You killed my sister." And he said, "No, I didn't. I was I was just simply going in." And he said, "Please, let's just get in the car and talk about this." Wanda refused. Again, like she refused before. She said, "No, I don't want to talk to you about this. You are a horrible person. You are a liar. You are a thief. You stole my heart. You stole everything. You were stealing from my sister, and now you were trying to steal from me. It wasn't good that there was nothing in the safe when you stole it. You stole my sister's life, and now you're stealing my business." And she went off, and there was nothing he could do. And all he could do was just cry. She didn't get into the car. She refused to get in the car with him, and she started to walk home. She flagged down a cab and she went directly to her mother's house. He went home and he waited for her. Nothing. He tried to call her, but he was blocked. He went to her mother's house and he saw her mom's car in the driveway, but no one was answering the door. He called the mother's house over and over and over. He called the mother's cell phone. He was blocked from there as well. There was nothing he could do. So he came here to the Dominican Republic. And this is where he is now living his life. He's living here and she sent him divorce papers through his email. She got a hold of him. He answered. He contacted a lawyer. The lawyer is working everything out with him. He signed the papers for the divorce. He's not taking anything from her, and he is not trying to take anything at all from the business. He feels like he helped to rebuild the business. He feels like he did his part by being forgiven. And now the only thing he can do is forgive himself. He's tried to reach out again to Wanda a couple of times from anonymous numbers, but she won't answer the phone. He reached out to their friends, their mutual friends, but the mutual friends don't understand the story and they only have her part, her side of it, and they do believe that he was being deceitful. So he's left alone and he does not know what to do. He still works just as hard here in the Dominican Republic. He's now one of the major builders for a huge development here in the Dominican Republic. He spends most of his days working, most of his nights crying. He's just feeling that hopefully one day Wanda will see the truth and forgive him and understand. He has left her an email to try to tell her the truth, but she still hasn't responded. So, this is the story, and this is what he's waiting for. You know, folks, at the end of the day, nobody is perfect. And when a person turns their life around, I think it's important for us to support them and honor them. It's not an easy thing to do. But of course, Wanda doesn't know the whole truth. She doesn't know everything. She only knows what she believes. And at the end of the day, at least he was able to apologize in some way. He still feels like she didn't give him the opportunity to say sorry the way that he would like to in order for him to heal. But he also knows that he will have that healing with God, and he just prays that Wanda will find it within herself one day to forgive him. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Let me know what you think about this story and what you would do. It's interesting, you know. I mean, nobody wants to be married to someone that is partly responsible for their family member's death. But at the same time, when you look at the story and the facts, it does seem like the two were brought together in beautiful circumstances, even though they were sorrowful circumstances. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Cerise, and this is Storytime. Please check out the Storytime playlist down below.